Hello. Hello, YouTube. Happy Tuesday. Welcome. I'm so glad to see you. I am going to jump right in so we can get some really good information going right away. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much for watching the replay. I'm so glad you're here. We have an interesting topic today, self-care during changing circumstances. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Let me know in the comment section where you guys are watching from if you're watching live. And also let me know how you're feeling. How are you doing? Let me know in the comment section what's going on in your world right now. I'll try to touch on some of that as well. But I'm going to jump right into our topic, which is self-care during changing circumstances. So at the time of filming this video, we're talking all about the weird coronavirus stuff that's going on, right? Our lives are sort of turned upside down a little bit, topsy-turvy. Things are changing on a daily basis. It's hard to know what's going to happen or what's going on. But I wanted to do a video on self-care in this time because I think it's so important. But I have a little interesting definition of self-care that I wanted to share with you. And I want you to think of this in terms of today and in terms of the rest of your life in the future. What happens when things like this happen, right? Like big things in our lives that we see as big. How do we stay on track? How do we stay consistent? How do we continue to take care of ourselves in weird times like this? So, not just like global pandemic coronavirus stuff, but what if we're getting divorced? Or what if our parent gets sick or, Alzheimer's, or a parent dies, or a child dies, or someone we know dies, or we lose a house or we lose a job or something like that. All these circumstances feel the same in our bodies, right? They feel just as big as the coronavirus because it's all changing our world so quickly. And maybe we've got some of these things stacked on top of us, right? And there's just things just keep happening, who knows. So it's how we take these things when we're in the middle of them and how we move forward when we're in them. So I want to talk about self-care and what that could look like right now. So we only have a few. This must be a bad day to do lives. I don't think I've ever done a live on a Tuesday, but that's okay. So I'm just going to move through. I'd love to have some interaction from you guys. If you want, let me know where you're watching from or let me know how you're doing. But I'm just going to move through this topic because the reason I'm talking about this topic is because all the stuff that I'm talking about here today is included in the Eat to Live Academy, which I am releasing right now. It's open for registration right now. So if you happen to be interested in these kinds of topics, the Academy is for you. I created the Eat to Live Academy for people who want to eat healthy and they want to, hey, sweetie, question about maintenance. Go ahead and ask your question. I'll come to it in just a second. So the Academy is all for always for people who want to eat healthy, stay eating healthy in the face of weird circumstances, even in the face of difficult times. They want to be consistent and they want to like it consistently, right? They want to love it for their whole life. Hey, Alyssa, so good to see you. They want to just keep doing this. So how do we do it? Because a lot of the times, and especially now, life throws us curveballs. And so how do we keep eating healthy and how do we keep taking care of ourselves even with curveballs? So of course, we would definitely call this coronavirus situation a pretty big curveball. And how do we, but I want to even mention we have much smaller curveballs too. Say someone, like when we're not in a time like this, a curveball could be someone calls you up and is like, hey, you want to go out for appetizers tonight? Or we're having a girls' night out or something like that. That would be a curveball too, that these kinds of things that happen to us all the time. So how do we stay on our game in a situation like that, right? How do we continue to eat healthy? So I created the Eat to Live Academy because I noticed when I was coaching private clients, I always ended up giving the same kinds of tools, the same kind of sort of life-changing tools that allow us to see healthy eating in a different light so that when curveballs come up, like coronavirus or girlfriends going out for dinner or a parent getting sick or whatever, we don't get thrown off our game. We continue to eat healthy, right? So that's what the Academy is all about. There's a ton more information on the Academy and what it is and some testimonials from some awesome people who've gone through it on the registration page. So registration's only open. Hello, Pat from a small town in Colorado. Pat, I'd love to hear your experience about grocery shopping right now. What's it like for you? Can you find any produce? How is it? So registration is open right now for the Academy. I'd love if you join. If you're interested in these kinds of topics, how do I eat healthy and how do I keep going when things are crazy? Or any kind of curveball that comes up in my life, this academy is for you. So there's a link in the description of this video. I'm also going to put a link in the comment section right here so you can go check that out. You don't even have to join now. It's just a great thing to know about that I offer. And then that way in the future, you can know that it's available and get in whenever you're ready, okay? That we're only having registration open for another few days. And I won't be opening it again for at least a month or two because of all this craziness. So if you're interested in this, you'll want to get in today. Okay. So let's talk about self-care. What is the definition of self-care? What does that mean? So Michelle, Mimi, you have a question about maintenance. Let me know what that question is if you're here and you're able to ask that question. I'd love to answer it for you. So self-care, what is it? Now, oftentimes the definition that everyone always talks about of self-care is like taking a pause and doing something for you, right? Like getting a manicure, going to um okay, Pat says hard to find produce and most good groceries, but we are staying strong. Good. Do you call ahead, Pat? Do you ask them when their produce comes in and things like that? I just ask because I know we call ahead here and find out when they're going to get deliveries and stuff, and usually they're pretty helpful with that. Sometimes it's hard because other people are doing the same thing, right? But so I want to talk a little bit about what self-care is. That it's not necessarily just getting manicures and massages and things that are sort of this temporary fix, right? To me, self-care is a totally different ballgame. Self-care is about doing something that moves the needle in a loving, nurturing kind of way. It's like self-care, self-love, loving yourself to create something in your life that you didn't have before. Because, like, imagine you get a manicure. Okay, you didn't have a manicure before, right? But manicures go away and they're just paint on your nails, right? Massage, you could argue that massage is good on a regular basis, but it's a thing that goes away. You leave that place and then the tension comes back up. So, my idea about self care is more about taking care of the inside of ourselves rather than the outside of ourselves. So, what do I mean by that? Um, okay, Mimi, I'm going to get back to you in one sec, okay? So, self care being two things. The mind, number one, we'll talk more about what that is in a second. It's about our mind first, and then it's about our inner wellness, as in health, second, okay? So, number one being managing our thoughts. Number one, number one, number one, number one. The most important thing to self care is managing our thoughts. So, creating something in our life that didn't exist before and that we can maintain and keep having and keep improving, that's what self care is. It's how do you actually meaningfully move the needle for yourself? How do you up level your life? How do you feel better? Even in the wake of changing circumstances. So, coronavirus being one, but any other changing circumstance, right? Any other curveball that comes into your life, how do you maintain your healthy lifestyle? How do you maintain a calm, level head kind of a thing? That's what it's all about. So, number one thing that you can do is to manage your thoughts when things like this happen. Now, this is what the Eat to Live Academy is all about, how to manage your thoughts. How do you manage your thoughts at a time like this or at a time like any other curveball? So, how it works is that our thoughts create our feelings. So, when we have a thought, like, oh my gosh, there's no toilet paper, right? Or it's so hard to find produce, or everyone's going to take my produce, or whatever. Those kinds of thoughts are clearly going to lead to more anxiety, right? And then our feelings create our actions. So anxiety usually leads to all negative actions, right? Things that aren't helpful for us. Hello, prep, cook, eat, repeat. Um, when we're taking a lot of negative actions, we end up with negative results. We end up with unhelpful results. So, how do we reverse this? Well, we got to reverse engineer the thing. If we want different results, we've got to end up changing our thoughts. That's the most important thing we can do. So, how do we manage our thoughts? Now, here's how this works. So, we're having a changing circumstance that's difficult. The first thing that we can usually do, and this is kind of a beginner thing, the best thing to do is to see what your feelings are at the moment. So we start by looking at our feelings because oftentimes we can notice our feelings maybe even easier than we can notice our thoughts in the beginning. Now thoughts are key, but if we can start with feelings. So the first thing we do is we go like, all right, well, how am I feeling right now? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling tired? Am I feeling angry? Am I feeling upset? Am I feeling happy? Am I feeling peaceful? Am I feeling calm? So, guys who are watching this right now, tell me what your feeling is right now, if you can. Just type a one word feeling: anxious, happy, excited, peaceful. Tell me one feeling that you're having right now. So, first thing we do is we find out a feeling that we're having. And then we go, okay, what thought? Alyssa has peaceful. That's beautiful. Now, Alyssa, you're having a thought that's creating that peaceful feeling. So, this is what we would do next. We go, okay, I feel peaceful. What is creating this? And I would go, all right, what is the thought that's creating this? It's probably something like, everything's going to be okay. We'll figure this out, right? Or like Pat says, but we are staying strong, right? But we are staying strong. That is a thought that creates stability, right? It creates, we got this. It creates, yeah, things are weird right now, but we got this no matter what, right? So, how do we create new feelings? If we're feeling super anxious, we got to look at our thoughts and we got to see what's creating that anxiety. So, the other day I was talking with my husband and he was feeling a lot of anxiety. And we're such a cool couple because, like, one day one of us will be feeling very anxious, and the next day the other will feel very anxious. Like, this was 2 days ago, and he was feeling super anxious. And then yesterday was my anxious day, and I was just crying all day long. And it might have had something to do with the pregnancy too, but I was just crying all day long. It's just the weight of everything came down, and I had to just let it out a little bit. So we kind of go back and forth like this. But on his anxiety day, we started to break it down. And we started to talk about, okay, where's the anxiety coming from? Like, what are those thoughts you're having? And his thoughts were all about the same kind of thoughts we're having right now, right? Like toilet paper, groceries, money, my job, all that kind of stuff. How are we going to keep going as these things are maybe getting worse, or as we're continuing to do this? How are we going to keep going? Which was creating a lot of anxiety. So then what we did was we said, all right, these are the thoughts that are creating that. We're going to run out of toilet paper. We're not going to find food. We're going to lose our jobs and the world's going to fall apart and, everything's going to be terrible. But what happens is we don't notice that our thoughts are doing this spiral thing. We don't notice that they're doing this crazy stuff. So the first thing that we have to do in order to manage our mind is to notice the thoughts first, right? Well, notice the feelings maybe, but then find out what the thoughts are that are creating those feelings. So if we can notice those thoughts, we can notice that most of the stress is coming from money, right? Or most of the stress is coming from toilet paper, or most of the stress is coming from not being able to find food or whatever. Then, now that we know what our stress is about, now that we know what our thoughts are about, then we can start to really break them down and ask ourselves questions about them. So, why am I so stressed out about toilet paper, right? Well, because I'm seeing it all over the news. Because when I go to the store, I see all these empty store shelves, which is strange and weird and scary for me. Because when I go on Amazon, there's no toilet paper, we can't find it, right? So then I go, okay, maybe that seems like it could produce anxiety, but what are some alternatives? Okay, well, worst case scenario, we all have clothes. We could rip up some clothes and use that as toilet for a little while and just do the laundry, right? We could buy a bidet. Like, we have a bidet. We've had one for a long time. I really love it. BIDET. It's a wonderful system for your toilet that just washes you instead of using toilet paper. So we have one of those. And so I don't worry about toilet paper at all because of that. But we actually just moved into this new house. So we didn't get it installed until like 3 days ago. So we got it installed because we were like toilet paper shortage. But then, so I was talking to my husband and I'm like, look, worst case scenario, we just use cloth, right? We use a shirt or some old shirt or something like that as toilet paper. And we maybe just do the laundry a little bit more often, right? There's options here. So then we're like, okay, we don't have to worry so much about the toilet paper thing, right? Cool. What else are we worried about? Food. So have we been able to not source food? No. We may not source the things that we want that day, but have we not been able to source food? No. Also, how much food do we actually have in our house? And like, look at the cupboards, look at this, look at that. We've got months of food in our house right now. Like, if it got really bad, we got months of food. And when we've gone to the store, have we not been able to find food at all? No. I love it's the way that Pat said this, hard to find produce and most good groceries, but we're staying strong. I love that because that sort of makes me think that she's thinking we can still find food, right? We can still find things to eat, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the things we would want, but we're in a weird situation. So maybe that's okay, right? And maybe we do some temporary measures or whatever. But also, the other thing too is like stores need some time to kind of understand this demand, and they're going through a huge transition right now too of figuring out how to order stuff so they can keep it on the shelves, right? And so there's an adjustment period for everyone, but can we change our definition of what we're eating for a little while? Can we change our definition of what we think about grocery shopping for a while? Can we, okay, Prep Cook Eat says a good app to use is Supercook so you can make things with what you have on hand. That's a beautiful idea, right? We have so much food actually in our house, and I know that you guys probably do too, that we could just eat for a long time without having to worry about things. But, and I was just talking about this with a friend today, we're so used to just having unlimited amounts of things that like we can just get things whenever we need it. We're so used to that that in a way we are just at a disadvantage with the way that we think because we're so used to just like when we use toilet paper, we just use as much as we need and we don't even think about it, right? So in a way, there's some good stuff happening here because it's teaching us to be a little more frugal and it's teaching us to be a little bit more careful with our resources. And so getting creative about what's happening. Now, here's where this comes in though, right? Because it doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to get stuff too, right? Like it's not necessarily wartime where there are just not enough people to make the stuff, right? Now we might run into some problems with works being shut down and production being shut down and things like this, but the difference here, now here's the part that's important. The important part here is managing our mind around this situation. So if we're in panic mode, what does panic mode create? It creates panic buying, right? It creates going to the store and buying way too much and having way too much on hand for the next person to not have enough. And that's why we're in a shortage right now. If everyone just went to the store once or twice a week, like they always did, and bought the same quantities they always did, it's not like there's an actual food shortage, right? It's not like we actually don't have enough food or we didn't have when this started. It's just that people are saying, because I mean, the other thing too is like, they're not going to shut down grocery stores so they're not going to starve to death, right? Like they wouldn't also starve us. So people are and you can see this everywhere, people are still allowed to go to the stores, people are still allowed to get groceries. In China, I think they were using food delivery. Like this stuff will get worked out and there's a way that we're going to be able to get food. It's when we panic about it. So this is where mind management comes into place. And this is why mind management and thought management is the most important way for self-care right now, to take care of ourselves. Because if we're putting ourselves through anxiety and panic and worry all the time, that's what's going to create more panic for us, which is going to create negative actions of, like, for example, this is a small example, but it was a couple weeks ago, I think, or maybe it was last week. I was so anxious about going to the store that I didn't go to the store. Right? Like how crazy is that? I was so anxious about what I was going to see at the store that I put it off for a couple days or something. Like it's so funny, right? But like this is what we do when we're in panic or when we're in anxiety. We don't actually act in a way that's useful. We act in a way that's irrational. Jillian says, it'll be a week tomorrow since I've been to the grocery store. I've been social isolating. Now I'm nervous. Right. Okay. So you're nervous. First of all, nothing wrong with being nervous. Let's put that out there. But why are we actually nervous? Because we're going to see empty store shelves, and we worry that we might not be able to get what we want, right? So, what if we said instead, and we manage our mind around this? So, first we see the thoughts. The thoughts are creating panic. Oh my gosh, what do I do? What's going to happen if I get there and they don't have what I want or whatever? You are going to see at the store, Jillian, that many things are out and lots of things on your list that you want aren't going to be there. But you're also going to see food. You're also going to see some food there that you could actually eat, right? Now, maybe we can't, and definitely some people in certain communities can't pull off full nutritarian right now. Totally okay, also, by the way, because we're still going to live as long as we can put calories in our body. And by the way, a lot of us have several pounds of food that are stored right on our body right now that our body could use if we really needed it. I mean, I personally happen to have no, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. But we do have food on our bodies stored as well. So this could be a chance for us to figure out how to be creative with what we can find in the store, to be creative with where we go shopping. Like one thing that's happening around here is so many people are going to the regular stores like Albertsons and Smiths and if you're in Florida or something, it would be Publix, or it might, I'm trying to think of the other stores, Kroger or whatever. People are going to like the regular stores, but they're not going to places like Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or health food stores. Like I noticed online today, we needed to buy some baby wipes because we want to stock up for the babies coming because we don't really know what's going to happen. And we got twins coming, so we want to make sure we have enough wipes. So I went on Amazon to go find wipes, and all the cheap wipes are gone, out of stock, don't know when they're going to be coming back in. But the Honest Company, which is Jessica Alba's company, a little more pricey, better, what do you call it? Ingredients? I don't know if you call that for wipes or whatever, but materials, super expensive, but gonna be in stock in a week. And so I was like, oh, look at that. That's so interesting. Like the ones that are expensive, no one's buying. And I understand people have budgets and they're worried also about the fact that they're losing jobs and getting laid off and stuff like this. But there is stock. Now, what if we were to manage our mind around the stress of it and we were to actually look at what's going on? Okay, so we're not going to restaurants as much. We're buying regular food at the store and staying home as much as possible. So the amount of money that we're saving from going to restaurants and going out so much and doing all these other things, we can spend a little bit of extra on the more expensive baby wipes or on the produce or whatever we can find in the store or whatever to kind of like make combinations and stuff. We can spend a little bit more if we need to because we're actually saving a bit or whatever. But this idea of panic, which is creating irrational actions, it's creating us doing things that make it so that we're losing our power, basically, right? Can you see that? Like when we act from a place of anxiety, we act from powerlessness. And powerlessness actions don't look good. They look like spinning wheels. They look like avoiding going to the store, right? But if we can come from a place of whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and these are the thoughts, right? Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's all going to be okay no matter what. Imagine times in history where people have gone through food shortages, they've gone through way more tough times and still gotten through it, right? Like people lose legs and they still go through it. People lose all of their limbs and they still get through it. People have family members that go to war that don't come back and they still get through that, right? We're going through a virus which is affecting the whole world, which is really weird and kind of unprecedented it's been a long time since this has happened. It's certainly never happened in a time where on a global scale in this way that has affected us this way. So what we need is adaptation, right? We don't need panic. We need adaptation. And that's what we're looking for right now. So what I want to talk about self-care, the most important thing that we can be doing is taking care of the internal system of our body. So our mind, our thoughts, which you talked about before, and then also our health. How can we keep ourselves as healthy as possible? So like going to the grocery store, not seeing a lot of stuff, working on that panic and going, okay, how can I create the healthiest meal right now? Right? With what I have, how can I create the healthiest meal? Or can I take a half an hour and call all the stores in the area and see if anyone has produce right now, right? So maybe it takes a little bit of extra time to find some produce, but I guarantee you the stores are going to be all at different times. They're going to have produce or they're not going to have produce, right? Or um, there's going to be ways to make semi-healthy meals as healthy as you can get it based on just some different type of action. We have to adapt our actions right now and change the way that we act in order to create a better result. And we can only do that from a place of empowerment. We can only create empowerment if our thoughts aren't sabotaging us, if you know what I mean. So how do we manage that mind? Well, first of all, we notice our feelings. We notice our thoughts. We see the story that we're telling ourselves. We look at the story. We ask questions about the story. Is this story useful? Is it helpful? Is it just holding me back? Right? Is my story, I'm so afraid to go to the store, so I'm just not going to go? Like that was my story last week. So then I thought, oh, what am I thinking? I'm thinking I'm so afraid of going to the store. Well, that's silly because it's making me not go to the store, right? Like if I don't go to the store, we're really going to run out of the stuff that I want. So what can I do to actually change that story? So then I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to stay in that story. I'm going to find a different story. So how could I source what I want? Which ended up being, well, I just got lucky because I went to Whole Foods at like 8 p.m., which by the way, I think 8 p.m. is a great time to shop right now because there's a lot less people and you don't have to do the waiting in line thing or whatever. And you might worry that stock might be out, but what if you called ahead and found out, If we call ahead, if we can do these kinds of rational actions like when are you getting your deliveries, when can I expect produce to come in, can I talk to your produce manager, right? When will, like, let's say you want staples like pasta or non-perishable things or beans or whatever, when are you going to get some more beans, are you guys getting beans, are you, this kind of a thing. Can you source beans from someone in the area who has a lot of beans, right? There's a bunch of pop-up Facebook groups right now of people, like we have a coronavirus Las Vegas group, and so you ask a question in there, and then people are sharing, people are bartering. And, this is creativity. And creativity can only come from rational, clear thinking and clear thoughts and empowered feelings, right? So if we can create empowerment like this and find source the things that we need in a creative way, by the way, this is what humans always do in any situation like this, like September 11th happens or the financial crisis happens or whatever. By the way, we're all still here, right? Like some of us would have passed away from disease and stuff still then, but like even people who went through foreclosure then, even people who went through really tough financial times, we're all still here. We had to adapt. We had to figure it out. Took some of us longer than others, right? But we had to figure that out. So how can we do that in this situation? And how can we be flexible when the whole world kind of, flips upside down? So super important to think about how to eat well and how to exercise. Now, I want to give you some other self-care tips that I think are super important. So first of all, managing our minds, managing our thoughts, trying to find things that are going to create empowerment. But I want us to think about what self-care is, which is, as I said, up-leveling our lives. It's creating something new. It's moving us forward. So I don't want you to think of a bubble bath as like just sitting in a bubble bath, right? Like it's fine and stuff, but when you get out, the bubble bath is over. There's no like lasting effects from a bubble bath. It's done. And now you're back into life, right? But what is actual self-care? Now, this is during coronavirus or not during coronavirus. Actual self-care is something that comes from a place of love, comes from a place of I want to feel good. And so, what can I do? Now, I'm going to just give you a couple ideas and you guys can make your own lists. Now, the reason I'm telling you this list is because we actually just talked about this lesson in the Eat to Live Academy this week. It's an 8-week course that you can learn all of this stuff. If you like this messaging and you like what I'm talking about on this call, this is the 8-week Eat to Live Academy. It's all about how do I eat well and how do I take care of myself in the presence of challenges, in the presence of like, I'm tired, I just don't want to, or I got all these other things going on, I don't feel like eating this way. That's what the Eat to Live Academy is about. It's only open for registration right now for a few more days. So if you want to get it, I haven't opened this for 6 weeks, and If you want to get in on it, it's not going to be open again for another probably at least 1 or 2 months past this coronavirus thing. So if you want to learn how to manage your minds and you want to learn how to understand how to continue to eat healthy or eat your healthiest or be your best no matter what's going on in your life, that's what the Eat to Live Academy is for. So there's a link in the comment section. There's a link in the description of this video as well. You can see how to join the academy too. So it's all about how to eat to live in the face of challenging mind circumstances, right? Alyssa says, I love your take on self-care. This is a huge paradigm shift for me. I'm glad you said that, Alyssa. It was a huge paradigm shift for me. And by the way, this is sort of a soft pitch, but the Eat to Live Academy is 8 weeks of paradigm shifts, literally. I mean, every single week is massive changes in the way that you think about your life and how you use your mind to create the results that you want. Okay. Say you want to create a result of weight loss, you use the academy for that. You use the techniques I have in the academy. So check that out. So I want to give you a couple ideas about self-care that would fit in line with this. So it's not bubble baths. I mean, that can be self-care. Like you can use that as self-care as you want, but it's not something that's moving you forward. So let's say, I got to say my biggest one, the one that always hits me, and this is going to sound weird, but it's budgeting and getting rid of your debt, like financial debt. Okay. My biggest one is budgeting and debt because I had massive debt when I was younger. I went to a private college. I went to NYU and I paid for it myself on loans, private loans, all myself. And so I had hundreds of thousands. I had like when I graduated $135,000 in debt, and then I was a credit card person. So I would rack up $20,000 of credit card debt at a time on 2 cards. So I'm, at different times $175,000 in debt with nothing to show for it, right? That was my whole age 18 to I think I was 33 or 34 when I finally paid it all off. But getting rid of debt is one of the best things you can do for self-care, by the way. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because I think it's pretty obvious. But if you're interested in learning how to get rid of debt, look up Dave Ramsey, Ramsey. He's like the master of helping you get rid of your debt. And also, I want to make a pitch for him because in this topic of self-care, using debt and money as a way to take care of yourself, getting real with your finances and getting real with how to actually have money in the bank. Like, let's say one of the big steps that you take on Dave Ramsey's program is to get an emergency fund. So you start off by getting $1,000 emergency fund in whatever way you can get, which is saving, right? Then once you pay off all your debt, that's the next step. Then you get a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. Okay. Now, imagine what it would be like if you don't have one and then something like the coronavirus happened where you have 6 months worth of savings. So you actually don't panic when something like this happens, right? That's self-care. Like I can't make a big enough case for that. That is self-care where you're taking care of future you. All of this self-care stuff is about taking care of future you. So that's one of my favorite ones. Another one that I love is just starting something new, like taking up a new hobby, right? Or for instance, at a time like this, finally reading all those books on your shelf, which you've been meaning to read for so long, right? Finding a way to use your free time or to create free time so that you can actually, like, instead of watching all of Netflix, right? Turn Netflix off and use the time you have to create something beautiful in your life. Like take up that hobby you've wanted to take up. Now, there's so many hobbies we can take up nowadays from the internet. So we could take up guitar or we could take up singing, or I used to actually I learned how to swim from YouTube, which sounds crazy, but I would watch videos and then I would go try the things in the pool and I'd watch videos and try the things in the pool, right? We can do so many different things just with YouTube or just with online courses or things like this. So take up something new. And this stuff doesn't have to cost any money, this self-care stuff, right? It doesn't have to be going to the movies or getting a manicure or getting a massage or whatever. It doesn't have cost money. Up-leveling our life can cost nothing, but it can create such a positive example in our life. Exercising, of course, right? And eating well, of course. So I'm talking about like our internal systems here. How do we create positivity and positive change and momentum in our life based on based on what we're doing for our insides. And so I'm talking about like managing our mind around crazy circumstances, right? And I'm talking about creating something positive, creating something new that wasn't there before. That is self-care, okay? So I'm going to get to some of these questions now. So KS says ideas of what to do, not enough tests in Texas, have cough and everything, using green tea. Yeah, what I might do in your spot. That is a tough spot. I'm not a doctor, so I can't really advise. So I think the first thing, of course, stay inside, lots of fluids, lots of rest. Anything you would do for the regular flu is what you're going to do for this too. And that might be your best bet, right? Doing the best you can to get as many G bombs, to get as much healthy food in you as you can to try and reduce this as much as possible. But really, in a time like this, your best bet is managing your mind around what's happening to you, because it could just be the flu. It could be coronavirus, which is also kind of just like the flu from 80% of the cases, right? So managing your mind around trying not to stress when you can't get the test, right? I know in Vegas we have people can't get the test here either. Um, so managing your mind, reducing your stress around what's happening to you, and taking care of yourself in a way that if you just had the flu, what would you do? Okay. So keeping a calm mind, trying to keep your emotions level. This is a neutral thing that's happening to you. It's not good or bad. It's just happening to you. And being neutral about it is going to create positive actions about it, right? So taking care of yourself, resting, drinking the water, doing everything you can to get healthy and stay healthy, right? Instead of the alternative would be um, freaking out, worrying, eating ice cream. Do you know what I mean? Like not taking care of yourself. The best thing you can be doing right now is taking care of yourself until the point where you can get tested or get what you need to get, right? And of course, look at your options on what happens for emergency care. Say it gets really bad and your fever gets really, really high. What do you do, right? How do you go to the hospital? These kinds of things. Just being very positive in the wake of strange circumstances, okay? And of course, not a doctor, can't advise medically, so that's just advice on person to person what I would do if I was you, okay? So I'm going to come back to Mimi's question here because I told her I would come back to this one. I want to answer this one. So she's talking about maintenance. Maybe because I'm small, but I struggle with maintenance. Can you tell me if you have guidelines for yourself on portions once you're at your ideal weight? I know we can have fruits and veggies in unlimited amounts, but maybe because I'm small, I recently a few pounds, probably gained a few pounds because I was traveling. It's harder to avoid oil. Okay, when I'm losing, I'm really mindful of how much grains and nuts and seeds. But when I'm not, I think just the tiniest amount over can lead to weight gain, even though I'm not getting over full. I don't always want to have to measure stuff, but maybe it's necessary for me. This is a great question. Okay. So, when we're small, first of all, yeah, we have to be a lot more careful with our portion sizes. And this idea is so important about weight loss. The way that you got to the weight is the way you're going to stay at the weight, okay? We don't lose weight and then go back to the way we used to eat, which is being all super willy-nilly and just like, oh, I'm going to have 10 handfuls of nuts and seeds today, right? I know you know this, but sometimes we need to be reminded of it when we're in it. So I'm not saying it like when you're losing weight, of course the quantities are a little bit different. And I don't think you have to measure all the time. But what I would do if I were you, and this is what I do when I'm on my protocol. So protocol meaning the amount of foods and the distribution of foods and how we eat nutritarian foods or whatever diet plan we're on, how we eat those foods when we're in weight loss mode is protocol. It's also like protocol it's kind of like a diet, but it's not. It's just a set of foods. I want you to think this word protocol as just a set of foods that we eat in order to create satiety, so we feel full enough, like we're getting enough calories, we're getting enough nutrients, we're getting enough fiber, and losing weight or maintaining our weight. That's a protocol. So the idea is that we want to have a set of meals that we eat that are going to create, first of all, weight loss so that we can get to our ideal weight. Then we want to have a set of, and then we want to learn how to tweak that protocol just a little bit so that we can get to the place of maintenance. So, maintenance is, you know, obviously, maintenance is just a little bit more food than we were having when we were losing weight. Now, for someone small like me or for you, unfortunately, it's not like getting to eat a whole other meal, or it's not like getting to eat a whole cup of grains suddenly or something like that every day, right? It's pretty darn close to where we were on weight loss. But what I want you to do is I want you to think of this as, I want you to look at the protocol that you use when you are losing weight, and I want you to learn how to eyeball it. Okay? Now, the important part here is that eyeballing means being very serious with yourself about what you're eyeballing, right? So for instance, let's say we're on weight loss mode and we know that we can have about a quarter cup of nuts and seeds per day, or maybe 2 servings of that or whatever for having less grains or something. We got to know what a quarter cup looks like, and then not like, how do I put it? Not fudge it uh, when we're in maintenance mode. Do you know what I mean? Not like, "Oh, yeah, this is a quarter cup," right? Or, "I can have 2 cups of grains now instead of 1," or whatever. Like, and so the point of this is, now here's the part where I really want you to listen. The point of this is that we manage our mind while it's happening. So I was talking about managing our mind being the most important thing that we do. Um, Managing our mind around this maintenance phase is going to be the most important thing that you do, Mimi. So when you're in maintenance, are you, because what you said was, I don't want to always have to measure stuff. Um, I think just the tiniest amount over can lead to weight gain, even though I'm not getting over full, right? Like, the thoughts that you have sound like scarcity and lack, right? They sound like, oh, like I can't even do this, right? That those kinds of thoughts are going to create feelings of scarcity and lack, which are going to create feelings of being, deprived. Like, it sounds like you feel like you're deprived. When we feel like we're deprived and when we are using thoughts that create feelings of deprivation, then we're going to end up overeating. But if we can instead change our thoughts to something like, yeah, I'm just going to eat similarly to the way I did to get here, and that's totally fine, and that's what it is. I just have to kind of eat the way I always did, right? When we can get to a place of being totally comfortable in our thoughts with what we're doing, like, was it was it a big deal for you to have a lower quantity in order to lose the weight? If you were making it a big deal, then it's going to be a big deal in maintenance too, right? But if we can make it normal and just what it takes for our body to be at its healthiest weight and that sort of a thing, if we just make it normal and remove all the drama from it, then when we go to weight maintenance period, no drama there either. And it's like, yeah, I'm just going to eat. Now, this could look like a few days you eat on your weight loss protocol. In a few days, you don't do your weight loss protocol. Maybe you have a little bit extra, and then you go back to your weight loss protocol, right? And there's no drama about it. You know what I mean? Like, the important part is that there's no drama about it. Like, just accepting that as a smaller person who wants to maintain a smaller weight, you've got to eat less. You just have to sort of be at that place. Now, it's important that your protocol creates satiety for you, which is the most important thing, maybe, because if you're not eating enough, right, you're not getting enough calories, not getting enough bulk, you're not going to stay on your protocol. You're just going to be starved, right? The way around this is to add more veggies. So when we add more veggies and we add more greens and things like that, we only add 30, 50, 100 calories, but tons more food. So that's how we're going to move this thing around. Now, if you're thinking that that's hard and you're thinking that you don't want to do that, that's going to create overeating, right? But if we can get to a place of acceptance, like, this is just how it is for me and this is how I'm going to maintain, and I'm fine with that and I love it, that's when we're going to be actually maintaining for life and enjoying it. So it's all about managing those thoughts around this. Okay. So, Wanasa says, sometimes the mind is willing to take up something new as habits, but suddenly you can change. How can one be consistent in this process? Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was talking about. This consistency comes from our mindset. So it comes from how we think of what we're doing. So just as I was telling Mimi a second ago, if you think that you're struggling and you think that you're having a hard time and you think that it's going to be hard forever, it will be. If you think that this is great and I love it and I'm getting enough food and I know I'm getting the right nutrients and all that, you're going to act that way, right? You're going to continue to do that. So it literally is all in your mindset and how you manage those thoughts. Now, the Eat to Live Academy is all about that. It's exactly about all this. How do you manage your mind when things throw you off, right? And how do you how do you change ingrained thought habits, like things that you've been thinking for years about this, like this is hard, or I'm not good at this, or I'll never get this right, or I'm a binge eater, or I always have trouble because my family doesn't eat this way, or whatever. Those ingrained thoughts that we have, that's what needs to change. And so that's what we deal with in the Eat to Live Academy. It's 8 weeks of these lessons and how do we make these paradigm shifts in our thoughts. So Mimi says, so helpful. Thanks. Do need to be reminded. Do you weigh yourself regularly? This is another lesson that we have in the Eat to Live Academy. She says, I can get a little crazy with scales. So I just noticed when my pants were feeling more tight. Yeah, so that for sure is a way to weigh yourself, right? By using your pants. But one of the lessons that we have in the academy is all about, yes, using the scale every single day. Now, we don't use the scale necessarily because our pants can tell us that. We don't necessarily use the scale to like know exactly down to the point to where we are because it just doesn't matter. We use the scale to learn how to manage our mind. Okay. Now, this is a topic that we talk all about in week 3, I believe it is. No, it's week 4 in the academy about how to use the scale. But the general concept is if we see ourselves bummed or obsessing when we're using the scale, we need to work on that, right? And so we use the scale as a way to see what's happening in our mind. If we see that we're happening, oh, look what we get to work on, right? Now we work on the obsessive part. And so I teach you exactly in the academy how to do that, how to work on those particular thoughts. And we have some very particular tools that we use to go from old thought patterns of, oh my gosh, the scale is so terrible. I hate scales. I don't even use them. I obsess about them too much, to scale's just a tool, no big deal, right? That's what we do in the academy. So, and Mimi says also jealous of people who can just eat whatever. Okay, let's talk about that for a second, right? Jealous. So this is a thought you have in your head and it's creating a result in your body. It's creating annoyance, which probably leads to overeating sometimes. It's creating, it's like non-acceptance, right? Like non-acceptance of reality. Now, let's be real. People who can just eat whatever, is that who we want to be? You can be that person right now. You can just eat whatever you want, right? But I'm sure your thought is who can eat whatever and stay thin. Now, first of all, do you know that to be true? Do you watch those people 24 hours a day and see that they can eat whatever they want? Or do they have bulimia, right? This is the thing, like some people, they make it look like they can eat whatever, but they actually can't. But also, on the flip side, do you want to just eat whatever and just put whatever you want in your body? Or do you want to eat to live? Because we know the food, the actual food that we eat is so important because it's longevity for us, right? It's health. That is our main goal, is to be healthy. And I see as the holy grail the ability to eat to live foods forever and love it and not feel deprived. That's the holy grail for me, because that leads to our perfect ideal weight, right? That leads to health and longevity and all that. So I see that as the holy grail. I do not see being able to eat whatever I want whenever I want it, junk food, this, that, whatever. I don't see that as the holy grail, right? If it's just about weight loss, then sure, that's the holy grail. It'd be great if I could be the kind of person who just got to eat whatever, but I don't want to be that person. I want to eat healthy and I want to know how to love it, right? I want to know how to like that and be consistent. Yeah. And she says, I guess I feel hungry a lot when I'm losing weight. Hopefully it won't be that way once I'm at my ideal, only a couple pounds away. That's where protocol comes in. You need to add more veggies. You need to reduce some of the higher calorie foods and add more veggies, and then you won't get that hunger. You're just not getting the ratio right. What we want and what is ideal is for us to eat a meal have a nice full meal that satiates us for 3, 4, 5 hours. Then we want to ease into hunger, like normal hunger, not toxic hunger. We want to ease into starting to get hungry, and then we have the next meal. That's how we know our previous meal was big enough, because it got us through until the next meal. And that comes from lots of veggies, lots of greens. It's the only way to do it, because we lose weight super easily that way. It's the promise of the nutritarian diet. And we know we're getting tons of nutrients, which also reduces cravings and helps us and everything. Now it's just down to how do we do it and how do we like it forever, right? That's the hard part. And so that's what we deal with in the Eat to Live Academy. So I have couple different things I offer. I offer the 21-day challenges, and I offer the Eat to Live Academy. The 21-day challenges are the protocol. That tells you exactly how much to eat and when to eat it so that you can lose weight, feel satiated and all that. Then once you understand that, then you can go into the Eat to Live Academy, or you can just go straight into the Eat to Live Academy now, because we talk about protocol in there too, and the scale and all that. It's my whole private coaching program in a digital online course, actually. So we talk about that in there, and you can go into the academy to then get your mindset around how to be consistent for life. So the challenges tell you how to eat the food. The academy tells you how to love the food and do it consistently for life. So the academy, Eat to Live Academy, is open for registration right now. Only going to be open for a few more days, and I definitely won't be opening it for another month or two, at least, at the very least. So if you like the stuff I was talking about in this video, the academy is for you, okay? I've put a link to it in the description of this video, and also there's a link in the chat section as well. So if you're interested, there's a whole amazing landing page that has tons and tons of information about exactly what you get in the academy. Just at least go to that page and check it out and see what you think about it, and keep it in mind if you don't want to do it now, or do it now. This is the best time. We all have more time on our hands, and this is a great way to kind of get this self-care thing going. Alyssa, Jolene says, I want to eat healthy and love it too. I know that that's what everyone wants, right? That's what the academy is all about. So Alyssa says, address the difference between ideal weight, a number we have fixed in our head, and the ideal weight that our body wants to be. Oh, good question. Such a good question, Alyssa. So ideal weight, yeah, I'm glad you made that distinction, because they're two different things. Ideal weight in our head, the number that we're thinking of, is just a fabrication. That number means nothing. Throw it out, please. Throw it out. The only ideal weight that matters is what your body thinks is ideal. Here's how you know. Here's how you know you're at your ideal weight. The only way you can be at your ideal weight is if these things are true. You no longer have food cravings. You no longer feel addicted to food in any way. You don't have like a pull to eat a certain thing. Like, it's like, what is a craving? Well, it's wanting something. It's wanting one particular food, right? Like if you only want one particular food and only one particular food is going to do it for you, you're craving, right? So ideal weight is the place where you no longer crave food. You're over your food addictions. You eat nutritarian and you love it and you just do it. Like I'm describing Dr. Furman right now, by the way, okay? You just eat the nutritarian food. You don't overeat. You eat 2 or 3 meals per day that are large enough to get you to the next meal without ravenous hunger. You don't snack between meals. You get all your G-bombs in. You just eat this way, and there's no drama. When you've done that for a period of time and your weight evens out and stays in one place and you're not even doing anything to do that, it just does it because you're eating like so many vegetables, and you have, you don't overeat on nuts and seeds. You just kind of like follow the guidelines, and you have like a cup of grains a day, and you have some beans and some mushrooms and stuff, and like it doesn't matter. That's your ideal weight, right? I want you to think of it like sliding into home base. Like you just glide there. There's no drama. It's not hard. You didn't have to willpower or white knuckle your way to it. Just happened. You'll know you're there when it just happens and there's no more drama. That's your ideal weight. It's a lot lower than you're thinking it is, by the way, right? Like everyone talks about this nutritarian weight. It's a lot lower than you think it is because your body actually doesn't need a ton of food. It really doesn't. Like it needs to be at its lower weight. And as Dr. Furman says, it has to be this moderate caloric restriction, right? Like you get a little bit of caloric restriction, but a ton of food. That's nutritarian. That's what leads to longevity, and that's what leads to your Dr. Furman weight. Like Dr. Furman has been between like 145 and 155 pounds his whole life. That's it. And like he just eats and he doesn't even have to think about things. He just eats what he eats and then that's it. Okay? So yeah, yay for no drama for sure. That's where we want to be. And by the way, the Eat to Live Academy is the No Drama Academy. We could call it that. It's like, how do you get the drama out of eating? That's what it is. So if you guys are interested, that's all I got for you today. That's all the questions I have too. So if you're interested in the Eat to Live Academy, make sure you go and check out the landing page. At least there's so many good so much good information on what's in the academy and what you'll get out of it. I'd love to see you in it. It's only open for registration for a couple more days. Just go check it out and see what you think and keep it in mind at least. Otherwise, we're going to be launching another 21-day challenge in, I think, a few weeks, something like that. And it's going to be the coronavirus edition or the immunity edition. We're going to have a bunch of information like this that we talked about how to keep your cool and how to stay on track when you're in this weird time and, getting groceries and things like that. So there'll be a bunch of information in there on how to deal with immunity and stuff like that too. So thank you so much, Prep Cookie Eat Repeat. I was so glad you're here. So good to see you guys. And I hope to see you in the Eat to Live Academy so bad. It's also got a private Facebook group that I'm in every day and Nancy's in, and we just coach. And you get so much free coaching in there. It's awesome. So hope to see you in the Academy. And I hope you have an awesome Tuesday. Take care of yourselves, manage your mind, and do some really good self-care for you now. Okay? I love you guys. See you in a very soon future video. All right. Bye.